Following the War of 1812, Democratic-Republican James Monroe was elected president. His presidency is sometimes referred to as the Era of Good Feelings, because the political battles between the two major parties began to die down, mostly because the Federalist Party basically dissolved. Ironically, the Democratic Republicans embraced many of the nationalist policies of the former Federalist Party. These policies are sometimes referred to as the American system, since they contributed to an increased sense of a national identity in America. In 1816, Congress reauthorized a second national bank. This second national bank had the power to issue a national currency and to control state-sponsored banks. In 1816, Congress also authorized another round of protective tariffs in order to help American manufacturers compete with cheaper British goods, which were now again coming into the country since we were no longer at war with Great Britain. After the War of 1812, the United States had no real transportation infrastructure. Congress introduced a bill that would fund the building of a transportation network throughout the country, but the bill was vetoed. Instead, many of these projects would be funded at the state and local levels. President James Monroe wanted to strengthen America's foreign policy. Starting in the 1820s, many Latin American colonies had declared their independence from Spain. In 1823, at the urging of his Secretary of State, John Quincy Adams, Monroe issued a message to European leaders proclaiming that the Western Hemisphere was now closed to any further colonization by European countries. This message became known as the Monroe Doctrine. This assertive statement sent a clear message that the United States was now going to be the major power in the Western Hemisphere. Shifting gears a little bit, we're going to now talk about the transportation revolution. Shifting gears, transportation, get it? Anyway, in the early 1800s, the transportation revolution began to physically link the country together in ways that it had not known before. Prior to this period, the transportation network in the U.S. was basically non-existent. Moving people and goods was a time-consuming and expensive endeavor. To improve transportation and shipping, the nation began building roads, canals, and railroads at an unprecedented rate. The largest project at the time was the Erie Canal. Construction of the Erie Canal began in 1817, and when it was completed in 1825, it linked the Great Lakes with the Hudson River and therefore New York City and the Atlantic Ocean. By 1840, more than 3,300 miles of canals were built throughout the country. Combined with the new steamboat, which was invented by Robert Fulton in 1807, shipping costs were dramatically reduced, and the population of towns along the routes of major rivers and canals increased. In addition to canals, railroad construction skyrocketed during this period. Between 1830 and 1861, 30,000 miles of new railroads were constructed around the nation. The transportation revolution had an important economic and social impact on the country. Improved transportation reduced the cost of shipping and stimulated economic growth. It also began to link the country together economically and socially, which contributed to a growing sense of a national identity. That being said, as a sense of American nationalism began to grow, strong sectional differences, especially between the North and South, were still very evident. Until next time, take care.